welcome out to another Top 5. Now this week's Top 5 is actually very close to my heart, at least it used to be. We're doing the Top 5 gaming magazines. Yes, that's right. These are some honorable mentions right here. Now, Andy, what do we have for honorable mentions? We got PSM. Now, for those of you who have never seen a PSM, it was when the PlayStation 2 was huge, and of course I have the issue with the swimsuit edition, just for you, Joey, so you can play with that one. But solid thing. GamePro was allowed for a long time. They always had these extra things with the hot cheats on the back, and you know, I always thought it was a decent magazine, although these guys didn't read it.
Pretty solid, but not one that would get my money.
In the top 5. And another one of my favorites is actually, surprisingly, Xbox Magazine. Now, the only reason why this is my favorite, before we had Xbox Live, we had to get your demos somewhere. Instead of doing individually, they'd come on. Every single magazine came with a DVD to put in your Xbox, and you could play the demos. I thought that was the coolest thing.
That's how I played Fable.
Yeah, that's how I got to know a lot of games, and it was great. I loved it, and that's the only reason why I subscribed to it. So
now I want to say something about why this list is so awesome. This list is awesome because back in the day we didn't have the internet. We barely had telephone, and we had to remember telephone numbers.
And you had to call Nintendo like hotline.
Hey kids, power up your score on Super Mario Brothers and Super Mario Brothers 2. Call the Power Phone for Nintendo players. Get high-scoring tips and find out how you can get a free Super Power Patch. Call 1-900-909-3500.
All we had were these magazines and, unfortunately, somebody's brand of review and the back of a box. That's all we had to take a look at what games we were going to try to bully our parents into buying for us. Anyway, without further ado, on to the list.
Number 5.
Number 5 is actually still around today, and of course, still with the largest video game retailer, GameStop. This is the Game Informer. Now, I have actually a copy of the Game Informer signed by the entire crew of the Ghostbusters. I know everybody's jealous about that. But this magazine actually, I don't know who started it first. It was EB Games or GameStop, but you would get it free with their 10% off card.
Yep.
So GMR Magazine and them merged once they did that, and it created a really good magazine. I mean, it's got pretty much most of the things I like to see today. You know, of course, the staples. You've got reviews, you've got insider looks, but one thing I do like is the buyer's guide. Now, their Christmas guide and buyer's guide, so they show me like a PC that's for sale. Then
the Christmas guide is always
awesome
the best.
Headphones, and then they'll show me like a DVD of something I didn't know existed.
And the cool thing that when they review games is they have great pictures. They have great photos of really good gameplay. Yeah. And you're like, this looks awesome.
It does. Of course, all of them have a rating system, but one of my favorite things that they do is they're like, are you replay value? Are you gonna keep playing this game? And they started actually doing for a couple of years their classic game section, which is always a favorite of mine to read. Of course, most people subscribe to this because you get a 10% off card, but a pretty solid number 5 magazine. Thank you, GameStop, for actually, I might say giving back, but they take a lot of money. Taking less by giving me a magazine so I can get reviews and, of course, blow my load in your stores.
Number 4.
Number 4 is actually a combination of two, since, they're kind of close to the same thing, but PC
Gamer
yes.
and Mac World.
Now, Joey, what is this PC Gamer Mac World? Why is it on the list?
Both are very specific to either PC gamers or Mac gamers. Now, the Mac Gamer is evolving and growing and adding a lot of
games to 4 games.
Back in the day, the Mac didn't have very many.
No, you had like the Apple II, which had some games, but then when it really became a Mac, you didn't really have many games. The good thing that they do push is discs inside their games. Like they will push demos and discs just like some of the old magazines we were talking about. Also PC Gamer. I bought the Star Trek Online edition. Had some great information about it, great login information, and they really go in depth on, hey, if you really want to get this game, you can go to this website, sign up for the beta, and all these different things. And also with both of them, if you want to build like the gaming Mac or the gaming PC, it shows you what to do and what games are going to run the best on it.
Now, see, I think that's the coolest part of both those magazines because, with consoles, we don't have to worry about that crap. We put the game in, we hit play. But with the PC, you don't know if you need to download special drivers. This shows you the drivers. This shows you, hey, if you want to spend $50, it'll work. If you want to spend $500, it'll blow your mind.
Right, and then you have people like Fatality, like in PC Gamer, his ads are everywhere.
Number 3.
Number 3 is actually tips and tricks. Now, I don't know how many of you people read this, but what it would do, it would cut the BS, pretty much. It would give you exactly what you need to know. It goes by category, Xbox, PlayStation.
Yep.
Gives you everything, the cheat codes, the walkthroughs, the whatever. One of my favorite sections in this, now this is just because I'm a classic collector, it'd be like the collector's closet. Basically, people would submit their collections of pictures, and then they'd also give you tips on what not to buy and what to buy that's rare, that's fun, this game had everything and it gave it to you fast. It's pretty much the internet in a magazine.
It is.
And that is why it was so cool. Now, Andy does not like this one because he says he doesn't like to cheat, but I know he's been online to look up games.
You know what though? See, I'm kind of a purist. I'll give up on a game before I'll actually go and look up codes on how to beat it.
On top of this, I'm gonna have to go with him. I wasn't a big fan of this, didn't buy it. I know one of my best friends did.
Everybody looked at it though.
Who cheats on every game, but I would always go and Justin Shorney.
That's right.
And I would always go over to his house and be like, "Why do you ever get this game, man?" And like I'll just casually like look through and be like, "All right, XCOM UFO Defense. Here's a good cheat," you know. And it's like, the games like that, like you had to cheat to like get an ending, like Warhawk. It's impossible. But this is great.
No. It's solid magazine, especially for those people who just want their information now. Not a bunch of reading, not a bunch of BS.
Great
Here's the
organization.
code. Done.
There you go.
Number 2.
Number 2 on our list is definitely one of my favorites growing up. Electronic Gaming Monthly, or EGM. Now, I had a subscription to this magazine. I didn't go and buy it at the stores. It came to my house until 1994,
The split.
when EGM decided, hey, you know what? I'm tired of ripping Andy off just a little bit. Actually, he wasn't ripping off. I'm tired of giving Andy a good deal by giving him a 500-page magazine. I'm gonna go ahead and split it into 2 magazines now and give you EGM 1 and EGM 2. EGM 1, back before like 1994, was the one-stop shop for everything outside of our number 1. But this magazine had everything. It had humor. It had, it was a little bit of Maxim. It was a little bit of a combination of all the different magazines at the time for each different system. And it really it had it all.
What it had was a ton of just fun things. It was just a fun all-around magazine. I mean, for example, we were talking about it, a Street Fighter character actually came from, I think, an April Fool's joke in an EGM magazine. And
Shenlong.
Yeah, for a magazine to say, hey, we're just gonna make fun of this and then it gets put in a game, I always thought that was badass.
Well, they had legendary April Fool's jokes. Nobody ever really knew what was going to happen in the April Fool's episode. It was a huge deal at
Most
the
of the time
time.
you thought it was the real deal.
Yeah,
Like
that's how
they were so convincing. They would have like interviews,
The full
all this sort of
spread.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like with Duke Nukem.
There were so many different ones. EGM, we need to go back to 1994 and bring that one back.
I wish we
Through
could.
the internet.
Well, with a magazine like that, I mean, you really had, it encapsulated everything that was good about like a magazine trying to cover all different consoles, all different genres, giving a comprehensive review of everything. Because at the time, you really needed something to come in there and give you like a more fair and balanced review, because it wasn't like particularized to any particular system. So you finally had something you go, oh, okay, well, I can kind of trust these reviews. Because that's all you had was the reviews.
Yeah.
A little more unbiased in terms of the reviews, but man, there's nothing like popping around on some old EGMs and just kind of like reviewing and going, oh man, I remember this cover.
They're still fun to look at.
Yeah, all like 500 pages of each episode. It was like an encyclopedia for video games each month. How do you even publish something with 500 pages? You don't.
Number 1.
And number 1 is pretty obvious, since we have the spread behind us. Now, number 1 was actually one of the first gaming magazines I read. I know there was some before them, actually some in the 70s, late 70s.
Yeah, but they didn't matter.
Yeah, no, they suck. Now, Nintendo Power Now today, it kind of sucks because they don't have that much to talk about.
You get it for nostalgia factor.
Nostalgia factor, I mean like the 20 years of Nintendo Power, whatever, but...
You know how cool this magazine is?
It was free.
It's in a frame on his wall. That's how important the number 1 issue of Nintendo Power is. I remember this issue, actually.
Oh, I do remember it too.
Yeah, you got the claymation going on. You're like, what the heck's going on?
Mario 2, man.
Zelda Second Quest.
That's right.
Yeah, the Part 2 magazine, but they gave that magazine away for free and everybody had a copy, but a totally cool magazine. Basically, Nintendo was it. it was the system, the whatever, and this is what we got to read to find out what was coming out, when it was coming out. And what was great is, since their first party, they got all the information,
From themselves.
when they want to give it to you, instead of like an EGM or whatever. They had to get the information from somebody else. They're like, oh.
It also has maybe my favorite thing ever written. If you go to SeanBaby.com and look up the further adventures of Mark Discordia, it's the funniest thing I've ever read in my life. And it basically follows a man who is a plumber who posted a high score in Mario and talks about, don't do drugs, be safe, whatever. Well, Sean Baby tracked him down years later. And actually, Sean Baby was a writer for EGM, actually, which is our number 2 on our list.
Yeah.
One of the funniest writers you've ever read. Look up his old stuff. It's totally hilarious. He talks about, like, why do I need my, like, trigger to rust out on my gun? I don't want to deal with all these features, or, like, how useless, escort missions are in video games, and how you just hate the person you're escorting. Anyway, Sean Baby does something awesome on something, so check out SeanBaby.com for a really funny article. But man, the posters in Nintendo Power.
Oh yeah, I forgot about those. The fold-out posters. Everybody had them plastered all over their walls.
Also, the comics.
Yeah, totally.
The comics were some of the things I looked so forward to. In fact, I have a Nintendo Power comic book specifically dedicated to comics that were in Nintendo Powers.
Totally awesome.
Do you guys remember the fan art where you draw in the mail?
Yep.
Like you draw in your envelope and like send it to Nintendo Power, and you try to get your
People
stuff.
post their high scores for games. I mean, this is where you learned the Contra code, the Konami code. I would rather look up the code to Super R-Type on a Nintendo Power rather than going to the internet. Just because I can remember looking at this thing being like,
so awesome.
I know, because it's one of those things where it's like
it's like man, it was awesome.
It's like a dream. It's like everything is better. Like you look up in the Nintendo Power, and what was cool is we were just even talking about this before we started filming, but like you talk about like Castlevania, you look on the front of that, you're like, what the heck is this game? And that game defined a franchise.
Yep.
30, 50 games deep now.
The Ninja Gaiden intro, like one where he's just sitting there, you're like, what is this game coming out? This is awesome.
I have to play it.
Because you don't hear about like now we can get trailers for games that are coming out in a year and a half, games that are going to come out in 5 years, games that come out in 3 months. This is what you saw. You saw these covers, you saw coming out, and you were like, what is going on? And this is when video games were born, when new console gaming is just growing, and it's an exciting time. And this magazine defined that.
What's sad is that magazines are on their way out. I mean, this list is pretty much done after this
Magazines
because they're done.
And like game rentals, game things, a lot of things are changing with the internet. It's sad.
You're just gonna be able to download games. You won't even get to hold your games anymore.
We are gonna be those old men being
Yeah.
like, I remember
off.
back in my day.
When we didn't download video games.
Yeah.
We actually opened up because we knew how to read back then. We didn't have somebody orating for us.
Well, that's our list. Magazines, there have been a ton that have come and gone. I'd like to see some new ones make a return, but it's not going to happen. So thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys again next time.